I wasn't even able to stand up and shower independently. I was having to use a shower chair.
Specialist recommended different things like IVs and supplements until I was probably on about 20 different pills.
I was bedridden. I had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. I was basically living every day just to survive.
At times I felt like I couldn't lift my head off the pillow.
I was dizzy, I had flu-like symptoms.
I would hold out on even using the restroom because I was so tired to even go to the bathroom.
Tachycardia would start and my body would flush and I'd be tingling and numb.
I couldn't talk to someone for more than 5 minutes. My throat would just swell out.
I couldn't go to the bathroom, couldn't shower alone.
$25,000 on doctors and hospital visits that cost $4,000 a piece, and every single one of them said there's nothing wrong with you.
I tried, you name it, functional medicine. I tried acupuncture. One time I tried to get hypnotized. I've had shamans dance around me.
This doctor is looking at me like I was just a crazy person. He just had no next steps.
And that's when I found the CFS Recovery YouTube channel. And honestly, that was the game changer.
This is a hypersensitive nervous system. This made sense for the first time.
Now I'm back on my laptop 5 to 6 hours a day.
I work with my screens again. I drive my car for every day.
I carried my son for the first time in half a year.
It's like my life is coming back to me.
People around me don't understand how I am still standing.
I'm thriving, I can work, I can travel, I can make friends, I can do...
Last year was the best year of business we ever had. This year is the new best year of business we've ever had. And it's because I'm healthy.
I have surpassed my wildest dreams.
Recovery is possible.
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 Hello, folks. How are you all doing? I feel like I haven't been on one of these live streams in a while. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Coach Junior. For those of you who are not familiar with who I am and are more used to seeing Miguel on these live streams, right? So today we're going to go over a little question and answer, right? We'll get your questions answered. We'll give some of you some direction. And for some of you who are a little bit new to our community or are just getting into the whole ecosystem of the nervous system and chronic illness, right? Welcome. And yeah, so you know how we like to start off these live streams usually is I like to ask where everybody's from, right? So if you can put in the chat where you're from, because we always like to read. We get people from all over the world, right? So I'll go ahead and do me first, right? So it's always good to lead by example. So I'll type it in here. Okay, let's do this. We'll do Junior from Florida. I might be using Miguel's account, so it might come up as his picture, but just understand it's me, right? So let's take a look at some of the folks that are here, okay? We got Jojo from Texas. Let me just show this on the screen here. We got Jojo from Texas. Welcome, Jojo. We got Jenny from Switzerland, which is really good. And then we have Shannon here from Alabama. Welcome, Shannon. Welcome, welcome. All right. Perfect. And for any of you who want to ask questions, right, or request any topics that you would like me to go over or any concepts that you need some additional clarity on, or maybe, some symptom conversations that you want to have in order to get you some direction. Harmony from the UK. And then we have Northern Light 1259 from Sweden. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, okay? I'll give you guys a couple minutes to go ahead and write down your questions in the chat. Small group today, right? Not too many live viewers at the moment, but I actually consider that to be a good thing, and I'll tell you why, right? The smaller the group, the more in-depth and detailed I can get with your individual answers. If we have large group, well, not so much. I got to keep my answers a little bit more vague, more generalized, more, more quick in nature, right? So I'll give you guys some time. If you want to go ahead and post questions here, we'll go ahead and get to it, right? And by the way, if you haven't seen, I did, well, I would say a recent interview, recent but not so recent because it released within the last couple months, I believe. I had a sit-down talk with Raylan, which is a good friend of the programs as well. So if you guys haven't seen that, I did an interview with her, I want to say a couple years ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, right? And from there, we decided to do a follow-up one, right? And in the follow-up one, I talked about all the things that I've learned since that first interview, and as well as we talked about some new subjects like how to be able to effectively coach people with children, right? So I think that's a good one. So after this live stream, if you guys have some time and obviously the cognitive ability, I would urge you go take a look at that one, right? And let's talk about questions. Okay, so let's get into it because it looks like we got our first one here pulled up. Let's have a conversation, Shannon. How about that? Right? I've seen multiple of every specialist, right? POTS, central I can't even say that word, sensitization. I can't even speak English today. Told I don't meet the CFS criteria, right? Severe internal vibrations and stinging, squeezing, palpitations, and flutters. Do I fit, right? You know, I don't get this whole fitting into certain criteria and not fitting into certain criteria, and I'll tell you why, right? And the reason why is because if we talk about CFS and zoom out from a nervous system scope here, we talk about CFS in terms of the nervous system, right? And with the nervous system, it controls every aspect of your body, it controls your physical sensations, but it's also connected to the brain, which controls your emotional state as well. And so if we talk about it from that sense, let's take a look at the things that you recommended here, right? Give me 1 second. I got some people added to the stage here. We got Crista. How you doing, Crista?
Yo, Junior, hello.
How you doing? You want to join me today?
I would love to do that. That would be awesome. That would be
Perfect.
awesome. I had a little
Perfect.
glitch with the link, but I am here now and ready to rock and roll and glad to be here with you guys. Oh, excellent.
The face is a little big for both of us. So let me see if we can fit us in a style that works. But if not, this is fine as well. But let me see if there's a way. No, it doesn't look like it, but it's okay, right? Oh, wait, there you go. You got it to work. Oh, here we go. Where did you press? Oh, group layout. There we go.
Is that okay for you?
Oh, yeah, that's totally okay. So we got a lot of questions rolling in. And this first one we were talking about, Shannon, she had a question. She said she's seen multiple specialists. We're talking about, the POTS and things like that. And she was told, actually, she doesn't meet CFS criteria, but she laid out her symptoms here, right? And I'm trying to answer the question in the form of a concept. And the concept is that if we zoom out through the lens and we look at it from the ways of the nervous system is in charge of pretty much almost every single sensation that we feel in our body, right? And this includes things like what she laid out: severe internal vibrations, the stinging, the squeezing, the palpitations, the flutters, right? And so, in my opinion, you fall under the umbrella of having a nervous system that is very limited in capacity, that needs to be reconditioned. And right now, because of the fact that it is, a little bit sensitive, it is affecting your quality of life and limiting how comfortable you can live, right? And to me, that is the definition of the condition that we help. So, whether that's a formal criteria that you fall under or informal, whatever it is, I'll tell you what, I think we can all agree that if you, were to follow the principles, they would help you as well, right? So if we were looking at it from a formal place, like, do you fit the criteria of having a sensitive nervous system under CFS? My opinion's yes, right? But these are my thoughts. Crista, what do you think?
Yeah, I fully agree. And, just to share with Shannon and for everyone listening in, these are symptoms and sensations that I experienced as well. I had POTS, I had dysautonomia also. I know POTS falls under that umbrella as well. The internal vibrations, all of these different sensations that I was experiencing. And just like what Coach Junior is highlighting here, what was so helpful for me was to be able to put those all under this one umbrella to kind of uniform them instead of them being each these separate things that I had to focus on or try to fix or find a solution for. I could put them all under that umbrella of a nervous system that has gone into this sensitized state, right? A hypersensitive nervous system. And that's here in that question too. There's that central sensitization. And that's what that's referring to as well, that there's a nervous system that has become sensitized. This could be through different forms of stimulus, chronic stress. We can look through our lives and often recognize there was a lot that was building up for our nervous systems. And for me, in my personal experience and now coaching, gosh, Junior, we've coached probably hundreds of people, maybe more than that, through the program, through the years. And I've seen people have these same sensations and symptoms and have these resolve with the work with the nervous system work. So that would be my insights on that. I hope that helps Shannon.
Mm-hmm. And she says here too, right? She went from over 50 to now about having 15 that move and change. Little golden nugget here, folks. If your symptoms move and change, it's a big indicator that it's highly likely it's possibly a nervous system, right? And it's enough to keep you in bed, right? What does that mean? It directly affects your standard quality of living. Well, when you're in bed, you don't really have a quality of life. It's very low. That's the thing, right? So for people to say, oh, you don't fall under the formal diagnosis of it, I just want to let you guys know there's a lot of people around the world who have this who don't have a formal diagnosis of this as well. And we help people all the same, right? It's not just because you don't have a diagnosis, you're not worthy of the help. You know what I mean? Tons of people. And you've seen that too, Crista, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No diagnosis, lots of diagnosis, tons of different diagnoses. I had a collection. I think at one point I had nearly the entire alphabet in diagnostic labels and things like that. So we see a wide range of this too.
Mm-hmm. I like this name. Let's go to Waggy Nation, right? I'm assuming this has something to do with dogs or cats, right? or animals. So if you're an animal lover, well, so are we. That's the thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. So really great. Here's the thing about a question like this, right? In my approach early on in my coaching journey, I would always see this as a one-part question, which was simply a reassurance question. And I would give the reassurance, right? But now that I have a little bit more depth, and I've been doing this for a little while, I'm realizing the most effective way to answer a question like this is in two parts instead of one, right? One, the reassurance is important, but two, the thing that helps move the needle forward is giving them a solution on how to approach it as well. So for the first part, Waggy Nation, right, is tightness in the head, okay, and in the stomach, normal during flare-ups. My reassurance to you is yes, absolutely it is, right? And while a yes is great, that doesn't really help you with it. It gives you relief. It doesn't move the needle forward. That's the thing, right? So the answer is yes. Now let's talk about how we can approach tightness in the head and in the stomach, right? If we feel tight in the head, because I've had this symptom myself too. If we're talking about the same thing, at least, because there's different types of tightness, right? There's nuance to this. My tightness felt like somebody had tied a rubber band around my forehead and to the back and then tied it real tight, right? That's the tightness around my head. And I would do stuff to help support myself if it was very uncomfortable, right? I would use things like an ice pack, or I would massage my temples a little bit, right? Or, I would move my eyebrows up and down like this, right? Responding well is great. And that is the main thing that we teach, right? But we often get questions of one or the other. Should I use the ice pack, or is it just to respond well? How about we do both? You know, I think instead of trying to white knuckle one or the other, I think we can be 200% more effective if we utilize both strategies. How about that? Let's use the ice pack, the temple massage. Let's do this with the eyebrows, and let's try to respond well and not freak out while that tightness in the head is happening. And then the same thing with the stomach tightness as well, right? Your stomach feels tight. I wouldn't wear a tight shirt. That's the thing. You know, I keep it loose. I massage my stomach to loosen it up as well. And that's the physical things that we can do to take care of it and help support our body. But at the same time, responding well is just as important, you know, not freaking out, not going into the spirals, and not wondering if it's anything aside from the nervous system, especially if you got tested and your stomach has been cleared. Okay. So that would be how I would approach it. What do you think, Krista?
I love this. I think it's definitely that two-pronged approach, right? I went so far as even to say responding well, part of responding well is supporting our physical bodies, right? So I love the way that you blended those two. It's not an either or. It's not a black and white respond well or support your body. It's respond well and support your body, support yourself. And I love that you tied that together, Junior. And I think something we talk about a lot on the calls, on the academy calls and integration calls, is the intention behind which we go to these tools or these supports too, right? And you highlighted that so well. So that same massage or that same cold pack, if we're rushing to them from a place of real desperation or real fear or avoidance, and be honest, sometimes I did approach things that way when I didn't understand some of these concepts or understand my nervous system. But what really helped me to shift to is to go to those things while responding well, calmly, with that intention to support my body. And I remember you highlighted this on an early call that I was on myself as a new thriver, you know. So this could be, if we're dealing something like this tightness, and a little bit of massage or ice helps. Or it could be something like if we're dealing with temperature dysregulation, right? It's really hot out, maybe. Stay cool, keep that fan nearby, have a lot of icy fluids, you know, use that cold pack, or same thing if you have difficulty with the colder weather, right? How can you support your body while you're navigating this? Or blood sugar was another big one that I experienced too. You know, I'd get these where I just felt like my blood sugar was dropping. You know, it wasn't about just responding well, it was about responding well and including in that supporting myself and having a small snack or something to keep my body supported going through this. I think this is important to highlight that again. It's not that black and white approach that many of us, myself included, approached life with or even recovery with before. So I appreciate you tying that in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two-part answer is much more effective, right? So really, really good. Let's go to Jenny. She says here, do you think it's possible to recover 100% while working 60% shifts, right? She works as a train driver. That is a very unique profession. You're actually the first person that I've talked to while working this job who operates a train, which is cool, right? Now, that comes with some layers to it, because in the second part of the question, you mentioned that you wake up at 3 a.m. to do it. That makes sense, because in order to get on a train, I would assume the train driver has to wake up earlier than me, and I gotta wake up quite early to get on a train. So 3 a.m, it makes sense, right? You used to be couch bound. So let's kind of reverse engineer this, because you talk about you used to be couch bound, but now you're working 60% shifts. First and foremost, before we even get to the answer, that's a congratulations, because you've been doing the work, you've been putting in the effort, and you went from a place that was very limited into a place now where you can work at least partially. 60%, that's not a small thing, especially in your profession. Waking up 3 a.m., come on. I mean, big deal. So congratulations and big win there for you getting as far as you have already. Now, is it possible to recover 100%? Absolutely. It's possible to recover 100%, even with your profession, right? Now, with that, there are complexities to it, and there is nuance to it as well. Because while it is possible to recover 100%, how effectively it is that you get there is determined by some variables that you've left out in terms of context, right? I don't know if you like your job. That's the thing. And I don't know how you're approaching your job while you're doing it. I don't know if you have a partner that drives the train with you. I don't know if you're taking breaks when you should be. And on the days where you don't work, or in the parts of the day where you come home after work, I don't know what we're doing. That's the thing. These are the things that we talk about that actually make the biggest difference, right? It's not just a matter of being so black and white about it and saying, you know, I work this tough job. Can I recover 100%? You absolutely can, but you have to pay attention to how you do it as well, because that matters. It's not just a matter of time. It's a matter of what you do with your time in it, right? So based on me having limited knowledge about your situation, I can give you probably some generalized tips that I think we can all agree on here. And I think we can all agree that waking up at 3 in the morning is extremely early for somebody. So what I can also think we can agree on is if you're waking up at 3 in the morning, let's try to go to sleep the night before early as well. I think that would best support your nervous system, right? And before bed, let's try our best to, you know, soften it up a little bit. If you're going to do screens, make the screen warm, right? You know, things like that, just to make it easier on the eyes. Also, I don't want you rushing out of bed in the morning either, right? You got to wake up at 3. I hope you don't have to be out the door at 3:15. That's the thing. Give yourself some buffer room between waking and getting out your house, right? While you're working, whenever you have the opportunity to, take breaks in between, chunk it down. Our thrivers, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've been guilty of this myself too. I've had a bad habit of, you know, the only time I took a break in recovery is when my body was screaming at me to do so. Let's make it a point to voluntarily take breaks throughout the workday, especially if you have long ones, even if you don't feel like you need to, right? This way it builds trust with the body. And then when we're coming home, you know, you seem smart, you seem sharp. Let's do things that support our nervous system when we get home. I don't know how physical driving a train is. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know how physical it is. If it's more cognitively demanding than it is physical, you should go home and do some light physical stuff. If it is very physically demanding, you should probably take it a little easy when you come home. And I think these are things that we can all agree on would really help move the needle forward in your recovery, right? So I'll pass it on to Krista and see what she thinks as well.
Yeah. Great suggestions, Junior. Just things that it took me maybe longer than it should have to learn some of these things, like that importance of not going into that rushing energy, that urgency energy. I remember going through my own recovery, being at this stage where I was really reintegrating into life. And again, big congratulations, Jenny, to be there and to be at that point where you've gone from couchbound to back to work. That's incredible. But I would catch myself. One of the things I remember one morning, I was just brushing my teeth, but I was like in full like urgency, speed mode, go, 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 go. And I was rushing. And I kind of had this little moment where I was like, why am I in such a big hurry? Right. And we understand that being in that rushed state isn't the best. It isn't the most sustainable for our nervous system as we're going through recovery. You know, so if we can we introduce that slowness? Can we take pauses? You know, and this doesn't need to be a big break or a big pause. For me in that moment, it was just taking things a little bit more slowly, noticing the smell of the minty toothbrush and just taking it just almost like a little bit. It felt like slow motion. I think it was more just like regular speed motion, but it felt very slow and unfamiliar for my nervous system. So those small shifts like that at this stage in recovery and really throughout recovery are really important. Same things with breaks. I think many of us have had that tendency perhaps in our past to push through, right? I was an over pusher in my past, and that was a behavior that wanted to come up. And so that's something I would add to what Coach Junior shared is as we're gaining more and more capacity, we have more capacity to potentially go into maybe some of those old survival mechanisms or some of those old familiar patterns that our nervous system had favored before. So just keep an eye if there's some of those patterns that might be coming up around urgency or not taking breaks or pushing through things. And just I implemented these little intention check-ins for myself at the start of the day to say like, okay, my intention today is to take things a little bit more slowly. And one last thing I'll highlight on here, because this was something that I really benefited from hearing throughout my recovery, was that not only can we recover with working, but work can be fuel for our recovery. It can give us an opportunity to add stimulus to our nervous system that we may not have otherwise done, right? Like especially with what you're doing, Jenny, being in a train station, and that's going to be a lot of stimulus on your nervous system, right? You're expanding in ways that you wouldn't be expanding otherwise, and that's absolutely fuel for recovery. So I had some limiting beliefs when I started my journey about the role that work would play in recovery. And so it was so helpful for me to hear coaches say, no, you can definitely work and recover, and it's actually working for you. It's giving you all these opportunities to expand in these really novel and different ways than you would have. So again, big congratulations, and I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kristen. That was super helpful. Let's go to Jojo. Krista, this is more of a question for you, honestly, than it is for me. So,
yeah, absolutely. I can dive into it. So Jojo's asking, how can I safely begin using weights again? I'm currently able to do resistance band workouts, but would like to try and transition to weights. Well, this is awesome, Jojo. This is very cool. Big congratulations on working out with those resistance bands, and let's get you working out with some weights again. So a little bit of my background, I worked for 20 plus years in the field of physical therapy. So it lights me up to see resistance bands. I'm just so glad there's if you guys have ever gone to physiotherapy and you've had experience with that field, you probably recognize those resistance bands. So excellent. And then to transition to using weights, it's going to be pretty similar, Jojo. You know, start with lighter weights, right? Lighter resistance. You know, I got a pair of like adjustable hand weights for myself at this stage of recovery. Those were nice because I was in a small apartment. They didn't take up too much space. But you could even start with something as simple as like some cans of soup or some water bottles, right? If you want to build up with a little resistance, and you could start there if you don't have access to those things. But if you do have access to weights, starting with a lighter weight and building up and doing more and more repetitions, right? So see how your nervous system responds. Start with 3 to 4 exercises and start with somewhere around 5 to 8 repetitions. If that goes pretty well and you're doing that consistently every other day for a little while, go ahead and increase your repetitions first before adding more weight. What we've found in working with nervous systems that have been in that hypersensitive state is if we can increase those repetitions first with a lighter weight, we increase the duration of that activity first. That helps our nervous system stabilize with that activity. Then we want to add in the resistance later because that will increase the intensity of that activity. And that then we've had that foundation. Now we can stack that intensity on top, and we tend to have more success with that. So build up those reps first, get to a couple sets of 10 to 12. If that goes really well for you, then start to increase the weight and start small to begin. And once you get more capacity, you'll be able to add more and more resistance and more more weight on that. That's my thoughts on that. You have anything you want to add, Junior, in your experience?
You said it perfectly, right? I don't have much experience with resistance.
It's like not your favorite, right? Not your favorite. I love it.
Krista has known me long enough to where, I see anything related to high intensity exercise or anything that mirrors that a little bit. And I'm like, not my thing. And it's not because I don't have the capacity to. I absolutely do. It's just not my value at all. So, but I know it's definitely Krista's. So this was definitely the question for you.
I love it. And I love that about our team. And it's funny that you brought this up, Junior. I was reflecting on this and I was like, you know what? I love Junior's authenticity. He is just not about the walks and the working out. I was out on my walk this morning and I was like, but I just love that. I love that. And so, yeah, it's just, thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to be true and authentic to ourselves, right? Because if I tried to be like Krista, it would wreck me. That's the thing. And if Krista tried to be like me, vice versa as well. But I think it's really important. And this can be, something that we talk about too of guys, if you're in a situation where somebody's presenting something to you that's not aligned with your values, don't force yourself to be aligned with it because the nervous system, it's pretty sharp. It can pick up on that stuff pretty quickly as well. We went to Portugal for the retreat, met up with everybody, and they did a morning hike. Right, together, and they went up to the top, they waved the flag, they saw a beautiful view, and it was beautiful because I saw it from the pictures because I didn't go, you know what I mean? But you know what I was doing at home while they were doing it? I was editing videos That's the thing, right? And I was working on topics to present on calls and stuff, so I was practicing something that was aligned with my values as well. And did I feel bad about not going on a hike? No, not at all. That's the thing, right? I felt aligned and true to myself as a means to saying no to that, right? So you want to touch on that too a little bit, Krista? What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is so important. I was thinking about it with our earlier question in work too, and just looking at when we can and how we can, bringing in the things that we value and that are our authentic yeses, right? And our authentic no's are important too. And so like for Junior, for example, I love this. A hike is truly one of Junior's authentic no's. And it's understandable. I totally get it. Like sometimes I think about my hobbies and I'm like, it's interesting. But for me, it's such an authentic yes. It lights me up. And if you reversed it, right? If you put me on screens for extra hours and doing a lot of video editing, it wouldn't be sustainable for me. I can use screens because I love to be here and be on calls like this. I value so much getting to connect, so I can link my values to those things and utilize them. But if I was only focused on that, it wouldn't be sustainable for me. Same way if Junior is trying to go on a hike every day, not sustainable. Again, not from a place of not having the capacity, which is an important distinction, right? It's from that place of this isn't my highest value. And so that's something that it took me a while to kind of explore. I guess I'm still exploring that, right? Still a work in progress and understanding what are my values, what's my authenticity. That was one of the kind of the surprise gifts that ended up coming out of this journey. I never thought about this stuff before.
That's right. So, being true to you, living a day that's aligned with your values or not, right, impacts the nervous system a lot more than people realize, right? And that's not to say that I want you guys to never entertain things that you're crazy about, right? Because then you'll fill your days with interests, but then void them of responsibilities that you're not so crazy about. And we do want to have a healthy balance of, okay, yeah, I do want to be able to edit music and play my video games and hang out with my friends and do this, but that doesn't mean you can use that and weaponize that as an excuse to not wash the dishes, to do your taxes, to take out the trash. There's a balance for it, for sure, right? Okay. We got a question from Northern Light 1259, and she says, I struggle with overthinking, both before an appointment and afterwards. Before, we're talking about the negative worst case. The appointment actually went well. Afterwards, she's overthinking because it went. Yep. Do you guys you want to hear a little golden nugget about thinking a lot before an appointment? This is something I figured out just through my own recovery, okay? Thinking really fast is actually, you want to think of it like this. You want to visualize a brain that is connected to your adrenal glands, if that makes sense. So when your adrenal glands are pumping adrenaline through you, because these two are connected, the activity in the brain also starts to go up at the same time, right? So if you are anticipating something, if you're nervous about something, as something's coming up, you're going to have adrenaline because your body wants to prepare you to rise to the occasion. But because of that, your mind's going to it's going to go do a lot of things because these two are connected. So when you have overthinking right before an appointment, the thinking is the byproduct of the adrenaline, right? It's not the cause. The adrenaline going through you is the cause. Your thoughts are happening as a byproduct result of it. And this is why people, when they try to slow down their fast thoughts, it doesn't work. It's because you're trying to fix the symptom, not the root. You don't want to try and slow down your thought. That's futile. And we know it's futile because we've tried it. You want to attack the root. Calm your system down and get that adrenaline to slow down. And that's how naturally, as a byproduct, the thoughts will slow down with it, if that makes sense. Because what you're dealing with right now, it's a nervous system doing that thing, the before and after. Before the appointment, your brain worries because it doesn't know what's coming. After the appointment, your brain worries because it does know what happened. It went well, but it wants to replay every single frame like it's a film. That's the thing, right? So it's adrenaline on both ends, right? And so the tip is, if you find your mind racing a lot before an event, it's because adrenaline's going through your body. Don't try to slow down or fix your thoughts. Do things that lower adrenaline. So if you want your thoughts to go down, I'm talking about breathing exercises. I'm talking about grounding exercises. Put some cold water on your wrist and your neck. Get some fresh air, right? These are things that lower adrenaline, make you more connected to the earth. And as a byproduct of that, without you even trying, your thoughts will naturally get slower. That's how it works in my opinion, because that's how I've experienced it. And this is how I've coached people to do it. And that's how it works for them. If you try to touch your thoughts, it's not going to work. That's the thing, right? It'll just keep being fast because the energy that's fueling it is still there. So, Crista, I want to get your take on it as well. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was one of my main symptoms. And I think what you highlighted here was something that it took a while for that to kind of click for me. But you highlighted it so well, Junior, is that overthinking, it's a symptom. It's a byproduct of the state of the nervous system. And so just like any other symptom, we don't want to go in with that magnifying glass, that hypervigilance, trying to fix it, force it to shift, focusing on it, right? Then that's just going to get us in that loop where now our nervous system is more having a danger response. And now that symptom is getting amplified because we're getting more and more adrenalized, right? So we're in that loop. I used very much the tools that you recommended there, Junior, especially the sensory grounding. You know, I had a little recovery toolkit essentially that I made for myself, you guys, that were these different sensory grounding tools that came along with me. They started with me in early recovery. They traveled with me when I was integrating back into life. So I had, for example, a little strong smelling essential oil in there. It's really potent, like eucalyptus, peppermint. So if I was feeling myself getting into that loop, I could open that little bottle, take that breath, use the breath, but use that strong smell to ground into my body a little bit, less in the thoughts and the mind and a little more in the body. This could be as simple as a strong or potent kind of taste, something sour, something really minty. If you don't have those things available, if you can find a window even that you look out and you go look at something in the distance and you expand your field of vision, that can be a sensory grounding tool. So we can use these little things when we find ourselves getting caught in those racing thoughts to help to kind of ground us and balance us. And then I had this too. I would have kind of the negative overthinking and the worst case scenarios before I went. And then if I had a positive outcome or something I perceived as a positive outcome, I would pendulum swing now to the positive ruminations. And so again, this is another symptom of a nervous system that's moving through that recalibration, right? It's swinging from sort of the negative overthinking to then the play-by-play of the positives and like overthinking that, right? And so that will start to come into the middle over time and it will start to stabilize. I just wanted to normalize that too, in case that's helpful, because I was like, what is going on with my mind? You know, it would go from the one extreme to the other extreme. And sometimes that was a little concerning for me. So very, very common if you are experiencing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's that link between the physiology and the psychology, right? They're connected together, right? When we were kids and I was hanging with my friends and I had I was holding something, you know what we used to do with our friends? We'd be like, hey dude. And then I would throw it really quick and catch him off guard. But what was the phrase we always used to say when we throw it at our friends? Hey dude, think fast. Boom. Think fast, which means when the brain creates an association psychologically and physiologically of when we are in a heightened state, we have to think really fast. That's the thing. It's a natural thing that the brain and body have a very deep primitive understanding. The more heightened the situation, the faster you probably have to think. That's the thing. But always understand that the thinking fast is a byproduct of you being in a heightened situation. So if you can tell your brain or convince your brain, this situation is not heightened and we need to bring ourselves back to reality, you no longer, or your brain no longer feels the need or the requirement to have to think fast. That's the thing. The racing thoughts are always a byproduct result. It's never something you actually want to attack directly in order to try to fix it. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Kind of a fun fact on this that I was just reading the other day, and I'll share this because Junior knows I love all the different sciences, and I love understanding like things like anthropology and like, just looking at our symptoms through that lens of the nervous system and why these things were survival mechanisms. And so what really was cool to me recently was I was reading this little bit in this book. And so it was talking about the overthinking, right? And I was someone who was a constant overthinker, and I almost would always get these to-do lists that would be in the back of my mind, almost like on repeat and refresh as part of this like rumination. Here's all the things you need to do today, do. And then I try to focus on something else. The to-do list would be like refreshing in the back. Here's all these things. Don't forget. And my brain would loop on this stuff. And I just found this really fascinating because throughout most of human evolution, we didn't have pens and papers. We didn't have the digital technology that we do today, right? Now we can just grab a Post-it note or a notepad and we can jot ourselves a note, or we can pull up an app on our phone and type a bullet point in there to remind ourselves for later. But when we needed to survive historically, we didn't have those tools available. So our survival depended on us needing to remember these things. Go get those berries. Don't eat those berries. Hunt that little rabbit, or, like, don't forget to get dinner. Our survival depended on us remembering these things. So this survival mechanism runs in our brains and our minds still today, but now we have the simple tools of a notebook or a notes app where we can jot these things down, and that can be really supportive. So if you're someone who's dealing with those ruminating to-do lists or those thoughts that kind of run and refresh in the background, grab a notebook or a notes app and just put some notes down for yourself, and that can help to support that symptom if you're experiencing that.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. And that makes total sense to me as well, Krista, right? It's so cool how all this stuff is really wired on a primitive level, just all the way back dating to history. And we're still wired like this today, even though the world looks so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost like our nervous systems who are wired for a certain way of living now have to adapt to a new way. But I think that's the beautiful thing, is that the brain is, fortunately for us, very adaptable. So really, really good. Also, I want to give you guys a little nugget of information here. The first part where she says, I struggle with overthinking, right? Here's what I found. If you put a verb, right, or an action or anything out there, like thinking, working, exercise, running, walking, whatever it is, it's actually fine. Like, I actually don't care what you do. That's not the part that's working is not keeping you sick. Walking, exercising, studying, thinking, that's not keeping you sick. Here's what I found. Anything with the word over in front of it is protection. Always remember that. If you put the word over in front of a verb, it automatically turns into something healthy, into something that's more protective. So for example, it's healthy to think, actually. It's healthy to have thoughts. It's healthy to use your brain. It's healthy to think. If someone is overthinking, their brain is protecting them. That's something that I know for sure, because that's something that I've seen. Protecting them from what? I don't know, because I don't know the context of everyone's situation. It's so different. Maybe you're thinking too much so you don't have to feel. Maybe you're thinking too much because you have pressure to perform. I don't know. But if you are overthinking, you're being protected, right? It's the same thing like if we use work for an example. Work is fine. Work is good. Work is healthy. If you are overworking, you are being protected. Protected from what? I don't know. People can overwork to avoid all kinds of things, right? So, it's a lot, there's a lot more nuance to it when it comes to that. And it's the same thing with like exercise. Exercise is good. Exercise is healthy. If you are over exercising, you are being protected by your brain from something. That's what I found, at least for me, to be true. Any verb, any action, totally okay. When you put the word over in front of it, we're going into protection mode. Someone is surviving from something, right? So I actually want to see what you think about that, Krista. What are your thoughts about that? Because this is just something I just noticed in myself.
Yeah.
So
no, I absolutely agree with that too. And what kind of came to mind too, Junior, as you're speaking, is just how important our word choices and our language and how much can come out of that, right? That's what really stands out to me. But I think you're just spot on with that over, right? Anything that's over it's out of balance, right? And anytime we see something that's out of balance, what's going on? Why? And so kind of doing that check-in, what is my nervous system trying to protect me from? I love that insight. And I would just kind of link it into just remembering our language and our word choice. That was something that it took a while for that to click for me too, and I'd hear the coaches talking on the calls, and you'll notice it when Junior's speaking. He's using much more neutral language. There's not big kind of dramatic or like emotionally intense language, because this is so important when we're going through recovery and we have that sensitive nervous system. It picks up on all these cues in our language too. And something that stood out to me just as you were talking, Junior, is I noticed that I would attach my identity to things. And I learned that when I would be curious on your insights on this as well. When I would say, I am struggling with this thing. I am an anxious person. I am ... fill in the blank, right? I didn't really realize that a lot of times our brains can perceive that as a direction, as a cue that says, oh, I'm saying I am this thing. And okay, let me follow suit with that, because our brains are listening into our language, and that can be taken in by our nervous system as direction. So instead of saying, for example, one that I really needed to work on in my journey, I was like, I'm anxious, or my anxiety, right? I would really kind of attach to those things, say like, I'm a person experiencing these feelings of anxiety. It felt really wordy and weird, but shifting some of these things in the way that we speak about them can be pretty significant to our nervous system. So it just kind of brought that up for me.
Yeah, definitely the idea of helping me detach, right? And not feel so close to what is a very uncomfortable experience, right? I am extremely fatigued. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times Nadia has heard that for me utter that phrase, and the intention was to communicate the fact that I was tired, and that I didn't have enough energy in the moment to perform in the ways that I would want to expect, right? And so when someone says something like, I am exhausted, I am, it's a very one-dimensional phrase, right? And there's not enough nuance to it, and there's not enough layers behind it that make it true. But I'll tell you why, folks, that this happens as well. When you're in survival mode, your brain doesn't have the capacity for nuance. That's the thing. Your brain doesn't have the capacity to a black and white statement, an absolute statement, a one reason, one cause, over-identifying with something. It's the easy way out in order to be able to speak, to use that language. And it's because the brain doesn't have enough energy processing to get there. But it is important to regularly practice that skill when you feel like you have the opportunity to, right? So, for example, and I can give you guys some examples of things that we hear that are, one-dimensional, right? It's definitely something physically wrong with me. I don't feel good today. Everything is ruined. If I rest, I'll get worse. If I push, I'll crash. We hear things like this on a regular basis every single day. They're very absolute. They're very confident, but at the same time, they're very false, right? You want to say it like this. Check this out. Today doesn't define my entire recovery. It was uncomfortable, right? But today is a data point in a much bigger picture, right? Or maybe you can say something like this. I can rest without backsliding, right? And I can challenge myself without feeling like I'm going to crash. The key is how I'm approaching it, right? That's much more gray. And I think, and Krista, I want to get your opinion on this too. The concept that both can be true, right? If we think one-dimensionally, it's like, I'm having a bad day. Does this mean I'm going backwards, right? How about you did have a bad, some moments today that were less than comfortable and that you consider bad, but you will still recover, because at the end of the day, both can be true at the same time, right? I think that's so unbelievably important to understand that. So what do you think, Krista?
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree with this too. A big, I guess not a big, it's a pretty short, it's a 3-letter word. I had lots of 3-letter words in recovery that were really significant. And one of them was and. Like, this is a really tough day. Straight up, I'm struggling today. Like, it's a hard day, right? I could acknowledge that. I started to soften my language and say, hey, it's a challenging day. And I used to think that meant kind of game over, right? If I wasn't responding perfectly, if I wasn't feeling progress in that day, I thought, okay, well, I must not be able to recover, right? But it's okay to say like, hey, I'm having a really challenging day and this is temporary. I'm going to get through this, right? And it was adding that and that was really helpful. And that's something that I brought into, and this is a whole other topic, so I won't go too far into it, but it was something that I needed to hear in things like practicing gratitude, because I had this perception that it was either like a black and white, either I was being toxically positive or I had some distorted thinking around this. So it was a gift to me to be able to say like, this is rocking my socks today. Like, I'm having a tough time responding well. And at the same time, I have these things in my life that are working for me. And there's some stuff that's going right, and it was that, and, that 3-letter word that was really helpful.
Both things can be true at the same time. I was doing a call, Krista, and they were asking me, I'm having a spat with my partner. He believes this and this and this and this and this, right? And he told me his perspective because they were both on the call. And she was like, and I believe this, 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 and this, right? Who's right? Who's wrong? And you know what I said? I said, you're both wrong and you're both right. There are some parts of both things that I agree with, and both can be true at the same time. They, and they worked out the middle ground. That's what I always found. The answer is always somewhere in the middle. That's the thing. So
great discussion. We got a lot out of that question. That's cool.
I know. We really did. Okay. Mr. Tony says, I've been struggling with digestive issues. It didn't really start until this issue began. Okay. I'm assuming you're saying your digestive issues didn't start until this whole CFS thing began, right? I have a doctor's appointment next week. Was wondering, can digestive issues go hand in hand with CFS? Yes, absolutely. The nervous system can cause a stomach ache, but it's good to see that you're getting checked out by a doctor just to make sure, right? Because you know what I found? I found that it's not so one-dimensional, right? We think of it like this. You get nervous, you're about to go on stage, you're about to give a speech, you're about to give a presentation, whatever. That anxiety can give you a stomach ache. And that cause is internal from your nervous system. Now, if you go to Red Lobster, right, and you eat spoiled food that's genuinely spoiled, not good for you, and you ingest that, you're going to get stomach ache, right? That's not caused by your brain. That's caused by you actually got, you know what I mean? So what have I learned is that it's not so one-dimensional as to blaming everything on the nervous system, because what I found is that the nervous system can be both the cause and the effect as well, right? So to answer your question, can the nervous system give you digestive issues? Absolutely. But also, I'm really glad you're getting checked out by a doctor just to make sure of that as well, right? We want to be responsible with this too. So what do you think, Krista?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it just was helpful for me too, Tony, to understand a lot of this stuff can root back into our nervous system, because our nervous system controls all of these different systems in our body. So it can influence our digestive system in general, upper GI, lower GI. So, for me, I experienced food sensitivities. I experienced things like acid reflux. I experienced IBS type symptoms, changes in what's called bowel and bladder function, go into the bathroom more than I would like and then not being able to go at other times. And it was just helpful for me to know that this can all go under that umbrella of a nervous system that's in that sensitive state, right? So if there's any more questions around that, I'd be happy to share more about this. But again, just like Junior said, we also want to do our due diligence and get things checked out and rule things out. Make sure we've had our tests and scans so that we can with confidence say, okay, this is just my nervous system doing some interesting things right now. Some uncomfortable, but also kind of interesting things.
That's right. No. And I think interesting is the best word we can use, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name. I'm just not. So,
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
My neighbor's daily karaoke triggers my survival state and severe symptoms due to fear of sleep disturbance from the past because of him, right? How should I effectively respond to these noises? They must really like to sing loud, huh? Right? In the hours of the night where you need to sleep. Okay. So this person clearly lives next to a pop star who's rehearsing for the next world tour.
Yep.
Right. And again, I tell you what, in the beginning when I started coaching, I would say, you know, all of it depends on your response, right? You can respond well to this, you get better, right? And again, to me, I've learned to be more multi-dimensional. That's a very one-dimensional answer coming from me of like, yeah, you need to work on your response. But you know what that's also indirectly saying as a coach? It's saying all of your problems is because of internal. That's why, right? And that's not necessarily fair because the nervous system doesn't just focus solely on an internal response. It pays attention to your external environmental factors as well, right? And so what is my answer going to be? I think you heard it before in the beginning of this call too, is that your internal response matters. It's very important, right? Here's my opinion. I don't like when people say, do I need to avoid triggers from my life, right? You know, this thing triggers me and this is why this is not going to make me recover. No. Everyone gets triggered. I get triggered still. Crista gets triggered still. Being triggered and reacting is a very human thing. That's not the thing that's keeping you stuck or sick is that. The internal part, halfway of this question, is me asking you when you get triggered, are you reacting or are you overreacting? Really important, right? And a lot of the reasons why we are overreacting is because the nervous system doesn't have enough capacity to hold that weight right now, right? But if you want to build the capacity to be able to hold that weight, ironically, the thing you actually need to do is be aware of your overreacting when it happens in real time and lessen that reaction just a little bit more than last time. I'm not asking you to have a normal one, but I'm asking you to just have it be 10% better than the last one. That's all. And that's what you can do to affect your internal. Now let's talk about the other side, which is the external factors at play. He's loud. Maybe they sing, maybe he or she sings bad. Maybe the songs are bad. Maybe it's 3 a.m, you can't sleep. Maybe your apartment is made out of cardboard walls. I don't know what it is. But you can also do things to help your environment as well, right? Slip them a little note under the door and say, hey, man, can you tone it down a little bit? I'm just going to be honest with you, man. I can't sleep, right? And I'm not paying rent every single month, so I can't sleep. You know, advocate for yourself a little bit. Don't be rude about it, obviously. Be respectful, be professional, but advocate for yourself, right? Reach out to your landlord as well. If you have an apartment, you have someone that owns it, that oversees the whole thing, that wants to make sure all their tenants are happy because you're the one that's paying his rent and making his money, right? So make sure you advocate for yourself. You talk to your landlord, but you also do things that help you as well. Earplugs can help support you as well. Doing things like that just to lessen the noise a little bit. Maybe a white noise machine that plays noise that's more in line with your values, as opposed to hearing Miley Cyrus karaoke all night at 3 a.m. So, you know, things like that. Internal response is important. Adjusting your external environment to make it work for you is equally as important as well. That's my opinion. So what do you think, Crista?
I completely agree. I'm trying to think if I have much to add. I think it's just right on track, right? It's that you have that initial reaction because you're human, right? But does it become an overreaction? What's your response, right? Because we're human. Someone karaokeing at 3 a.m., I know my first reaction is not going to be that calm, right? But if I stay in that reaction and I amplify that reaction and I'm amping that up, then that's where that's really going to influence my nervous system state, right? Where you're human, you're going to have an initial reaction to a situation like that. But if you stay in that overreact, that's where we want to shift. And after that reaction, how do we respond? That's what's going to be really significant for our nervous system. And then that balance of supporting yourself. I live really close to a big freeway here where I'm at in the States, in Southern California. One of the big, if anyone knows, big 101 freeway, right? So I'm really close to that. And in recovery, I'd hear these big old trucks driving by at wild times in the morning. And there's only so much we can do and only so much responding well. So that support, right? Put a fan on, white noise machine. There's so many apps on your phone too for free that you can download that'll make there's all kinds of different colored noises too. I just recently learned there's brown noise, there's pink noise. So pick a color that, resonates with you and your nervous system. And you can use things like that. So I found that really, really important. And I was just thinking too, Junior, how significant communication and standing up for yourself and supporting yourself is in recovery. That was something that was a challenge for me, because I approach things like situations like that in a black and white way, in an all or nothing way. Either I wasn't going to say anything to that neighbor and I was, going to stew on it and it was going to be that internal state, or I might go over the top and I'd get over there. I'd finally had enough and I wouldn't handle it very well. I'd get over there and get maybe knocking on the door or retaliate in some way because my nervous system would swing to these extremes. So I love this idea of finding the middle ground and just saying, send a little note, and I'm fortunate where I live in the apartments, my neighbors and we communicate with each other and we're pretty tight-knit and tightly stacked in our small apartments, and being able to communicate with my neighbors has been incredible. We can send each other a little text message. We had some issues with our plumbing here where one of our toilets, the stuff in the back of in the tank had gotten stuck on. And so the water was just running, and we put in the repair thing and we didn't really think that much about it. I got this nice little text message from my neighbor that said, hey, we don't know what's going on up there, but it just sounds like your water is running. You guys, everything okay? And, is there any chance you could turn it off? Because it's going crazy in our pipes all night. And just that little bit of communication just went such a long way, because we didn't realize they could hear it or that it would affect them at all. So opening up that communication, and now we have friends and neighbors, and it's really been helpful. And what a wonderful message of safety to the nervous system to be able to ask for your needs to be met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Advocating for yourself, so unbelievably important. I remember this was back when I used to work in the hospital and we had our own cubicles. And when I first moved in, when I got that job, I had a cubicle neighbor, right? And he had some odd habits about him. But the first time he met me, later on in the day, he comes over he doesn't come over my cubicle. He kind of just looked over the wall because he was right next to me. And he goes, I'm going to let you know one thing, brother, okay? If we have a problem and you don't tell me, we don't have a problem. You have a problem. So tell me, okay? And I was like, fair enough. And I like that way of thinking, because it is true. If you don't tell the other person, how are they going to know? Yeah. So really, really good. Okay. Let's see here. All things humor. I started to walk a little more, which is good, right? Adjustment period hit hard, right? Should APs only be minimal, or are intense adjustment periods necessary? Right? Let's change up the verbiage here a little bit, make it more neutral. Okay. Let's build an understanding of what's taking place. You started walking a little more, which means you're going out of your comfort zone. When you go out of your comfort zone, that is naturally going to introduce discomfort when you do that, right? Discomfort in the means of your nervous system now has something to adapt to if it wants to make its world bigger. So you're going to go through a temporary period of discomfort, right? Whether that discomfort is big or whether that discomfort is small, right? Well, it depends on what it is. If you have more fear around a certain thing, then the discomfort's going to be a little bit more big. Right? If you have less fear about it, or if you have less resistance to it, discomfort's going to be a little bit smaller. That's it. And I don't want you to expect a pattern or a cadence, because it's not going to happen. Because I have had my own experience where I've expanded activity by walking little bit. And with the same exact expansions, I had adjustment periods all over the place. I had some that were small. I had some that were huge. And then you realize, oh, the nervous system heals like layers of an onion. And every adjustment period, you peel off the layers of the onion. The thing I didn't realize is that every layer is a surprise. It could be bigger, it could be smaller, it's predetermined, and you don't know it, what it is, what's coming up next. Just like layers of an onion. There's some that are paper thin, some that are 3-4 slices thick, and they come off in that way, right? The best thing you can do in this situation, man, when you expand, just expand to what the next logical and practical step looks like for you relative to where you're at. Keep it gentle. And obviously don't do way too big of leaps, but don't do small ones so tiny to where it stops your progress or slows it down significantly if you have more in the tank, right? Keep it balanced enough to where it looks like the next logical step. And if you did that and you tried your best doing that and you still have a big one, then you still got a big one. But you might be surprised that you expand the same way next time, you might not have a big one. That's how this works, right? So I hope that helps. What do you think, Krista?
Yeah, I think this is important too. This is a really important question and really important topic too, to normalize having different intensities and different lengths of adjustment periods. Sometimes they're like you said, Junior, there's a little paper thin ones. You get through that. You're like, oh, okay, I got this. I'm getting the hang of this. And you're kind of going along. And then all of a sudden you get that thicker, juicier, multi-layer onion layer. And now here you go, right? And that was something that I would kind of I'd get a little worried about it. Did I do something wrong this time? Did I mess up? I'd get into those what if kind of thoughts. And that's where I really needed to do some of that work. So just to normalize this and say, this is absolutely to be expected as we go through recovery. It's natural and normal to have these different thicknesses, these different intensities of adjustment periods. And I even went through a stage through my recovery where I had been kind of getting in that rhythm and kind of getting what I thought was predictable adjustment periods. And then I'm doing the same next logical step. And I just got this big old whomping AP. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is, I had some pop quizzes along the way. And now I've got this big exam from my nervous system. But I got through it. I don't know if I passed with flying colors, but I passed. And, that's the other thing I would just highlight here is that we don't need perfection. We don't need to respond well 100% of the time. We just need to do a bit better and a bit differently than we could have done in the past. And that's going to move us forward. So yeah, I hope that helps and awesome work with your walks too.
Also, folks, let me just go into a quick topic here as well, because I think this is really important to talk about. You can go into an adjustment period. If your brain thinks you're ready, it'll peel off another layer of an onion, and it doesn't need a reason to do it. That's the thing, right? If your brain thinks you're ready and say, okay, you're ready for the next level, peel off the onion, it can happen at any time. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be immediately after you do an expansion. It can begin an adjustment period at times that you least expect, and it can end an adjustment period at times that you least expect. Let me tell you something that I see really often. I don't want you folks to fall into a trap with, okay? Let's say an adjustment period starts or an adjustment period ends. Do you know what the brain loves to do? It loves to make sense of things, because if it understands it or has some type of association or meaning to it, it can make sense of it and put kind of some type of logical equation as to why that happened, right? Do you guys know how many people come out of adjustment periods at a random time in the day or a certain part of the night, and they're doing a specific task while it's happening, conveniently while that's taking place, and then they build the false association that that's the thing that got them out of the adjustment period? I cannot tell you how many times I have received the message, Junior, I think I was meditating and my adjustment period instantly ended and I came out of it. That was it. It was the meditation. It was the release that did. No. You just happened to be meditating while you were coming out of an adjustment period. Those two are very rarely connected. That's the thing, because I hear so many stories of, I had an emotional release and that's why I came out of it. I ate those French fries and that's the thing that made me came out of it. I was on this walk with this very specific person and that's why I came out of it. I was in trauma therapy and 2 hours later I came out of it. No. Do not build an association, because you know what that can do? Possibly create a narrative or a false belief that's not true. Because guess what? You're going to think moving forward, oh, every single time I feel bad, I'll just meditate. And then I'll feel better and feel better. And then you're going to have that belief that meditation is your cure out of this and not anything else. And it might work for a little bit until it doesn't. And then the day it doesn't, your identity's shattered and you don't know what the heck happened. It's because meditation might not have been the thing that did it in the first place. Maybe you just happened to be meditating while coming out of an adjustment period. So please don't build links and associations. And that's not only just coming out of an adjustment period, that's going into one as well. Can't tell you guys how many times I was eating a hamburger and then I went into an adjustment period and I blamed it on the hamburger, or I blamed it on the walk, or I blamed it on the person I was having a conversation to. I was listening to Macklemore one time while I was going for a walk, and I went into an adjustment period and I thought that Macklemore triggered my adjustment period. No. I just happened to be listening to him while going into one. I happened to be eating a hamburger while going into one. Don't build the association and create a narrative that's more than likely not true. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Krista, what do you think? I see a lot of head nods.
Yeah, I'm smiling so much. This is so I was thinking, I'm like, where are my science folks? I know there's some sciencey folks listening in, but there was a sentence that was really focused on when I was going through school, and it was the sentence in science of correlation does not equal causation. So what the heck does that mean, right? It means just because two things happen together or seem to show a relationship, it doesn't mean that one thing is the reason for the other. It doesn't mean that thing has caused the other thing to happen. But just like you said, Junior, our brains they're really incredible. I think you and I both really are just fascinated by them, and they love to make these connections and try to make sense of the world, right? Try to have that sense of safety, that sense of control. And I was just smiling and laughing so much because before I found CFS recovery, one of my externals was this particular brand of cup, like microwavable mac and cheese. And I didn't know what was going on, but like I had convinced myself that I had to have this particular brand of these microwavable cups of mac and cheese because it helped me come out of an adjustment period. I didn't know what adjustment periods or any of those things were at that point, but I had like given all this credit to this external. And I bought a lot of those cups of mac and cheese, you guys. I bought a lot of them. And then one day it didn't work. And then just like Junior said, I was kind of distraught. And I felt like, just like that rug got pulled out of me, that sense of safety, or that like sense that I had figured something out. And I just felt kind of, I know it sounds I was a little maybe hyper emotional at that point, over emotional at that point, but I just felt really like lost. I'm like, oh, here went that external. So whatever we're linking, if we're linking our symptoms and we're saying this walk or this activity or this thing caused this adjustment period, or the other way, we're linking our relief to those externals, that's going to set us up for that sad day when that cup of mac and cheese doesn't work. Right.
And literally, if you think about it like that, we could sell anything and it could work. Because here's the thing with the nervous system, right? You're inevitably going to have days where you don't feel your best, and you're inevitably going to have days where you feel good, right? I could literally tell people anything. Hey, guys, the cure here is this big chewy granola bar with the chocolate in it, right? Just eat it every single day. Watch, it's going to work. You're going to eat it one day and you're going to feel better, right? And so you eat it every single day. I don't feel better. I don't feel better. One day, oh, he's right. I just needed to stay consistent with it. And I ate it, and one day I felt better. I think this is true, what he says. You are going to feel a good day regardless of eating that granola bar or not. That's the thing. But because I told you it, and now your brain's created the association, you think that is the truth, and you believe me to be a guru. That's not how this works, folks, right? Please listen to what Krista says about the causation thing, right? It's so unbelievably true. Because if you don't, you're going to get scammed from all kinds of people trying to sell you supplements, juices, special types of diets.
Oh my gosh.
Take it from someone who's done the supplements, juices, and all kinds of diets. It doesn't work. No. I'm telling you that right now. Okay.
Yeah. How much celery juice did you drink, Junior?
Oh my God.
Sorry to bring up the celery.
I'll tell you what. The celery juice, it did help me with one thing. I was passing stools quick. I was never constipated. Never, ever. Did it give me energy? Not really. But what it did is it made me pass stools, and it gave me belief and hope. And that belief and hope actually gave me a little bit more energy. And because it gave me a little bit more energy, I thought the celery juice to be true. I believed it for a little bit until, guess what? Eventually one day, it didn't work anymore. Yeah. So,
yep. All those externals, be mindful of that. You know, I think that's such an important message here too. I spent so much money on externals, seeing all kinds of different specialists. I remember getting this whole concoction of like this herbal tea that was meant to help, and similar to what you experienced, Junior, but mine was meant to be this herbal tea, but I also had to pair it with this other very interesting concoction. It was meant to be, so I guess I'm going to share it. Here we go. Meant to be persimmons, sea slugs, and turtle meat. And you guys, I didn't get there, but I did start to go on this quest where I was trying to buy freeze-dried sea slugs from Alaska and all these things, because I was just so hopeful that maybe that was it. But again, I was reaching for that external, but I'd had that tea. I'd had a little bit of hope. I'd seen things start to shift, just like we're talking about, but it wasn't that sustainable, because we're going to have that variation. Our capacity is going to fluctuate throughout recovery. Our symptoms are going to fluctuate throughout recovery. Our mindset is going to fluctuate throughout recovery. That's part of the journey, right? But if we happen to be on one of those days where we're feeling lower symptoms, we have that tea, we can make that false link, right? And now we're dependent on that external, and eventually, just like the celery juice, it doesn't work anymore, and then we're back to the drawing board, right? Where here you learn the internal tools, you know, to really understand what's going on, and you have that realistic expectation of what recovery is going to look like.
and I think that's one thing I love about this program so much. It's very practical and realistic. That's the thing. Like, I would prefer people join a program that to their loved ones doesn't make you sound crazy, right? So we try to aim for that a lot of the time.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do this one. Let's do Harmony. You want to take this one, Krista?
Yeah, well, let's talk about this. So Harmony Lotus is asking, have you seen people heal from severe anxiety when it's been there long before they got CFS? Shall I treat it as just a symptom of a dysregulated nervous system, same as other symptoms? And this is an excellent question. And this is something that I navigated actually in my own journey. I started experiencing what I now know was anxiety when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. I still remember sitting on the stairs in our home at that time and having this intense sensation that I didn't even have a name for at that age. And I had the same question as I was going through recovery from CFS and long COVID. And I didn't know what expectations to have. And so that anxiety was there for a big chunk of my journey. And I'm still a normal person. You put me on a stage in front of a large group of people and you ask me to give a speech, I'm going to have some anxiety, right? I'm going to have some of those sensations again, but nothing that's chronic and nothing like I lived most of my life with before. And so absolutely, not only have I seen others recover from this, but I did myself, right? And so what helped me was very much everything that we're talking about on this call, putting that symptom, putting that feeling of anxiety under that umbrella of a hypersensitive nervous system and responding to it much as I did the other symptoms, right? Not taking it on personally, doing my best to stay calm when I could, and implementing a lot of the grounding techniques. I would get these, it would almost feel like this chemical wave of anxiety, right? Because we're having that influx of adrenaline, cortisol, all of those chemicals from our nervous system into our bloodstream. And I leaned a lot on the support of those sensory grounding tools that we mentioned earlier that helped to calm my nervous system. It helped to kind of get me out of that pattern. My nervous system had been in that pattern for a long time. It was really uncomfortable, but it was really familiar. And our nervous systems, they like familiar, right? This is a tried and true pathway. We know we stay alive if we keep doing this. And so using those sensory tools to kind of interrupt that loop, to interrupt that pattern, was extremely helpful to gently start to teach my nervous system that it didn't have to keep going into that same loop. And so that's a lot that I would add on that. And what do you think, Junior?
I think it's spot on, right? My opinion, severe anxiety is a dysregulated nervous system. CFS is just a deeper dysregulated nervous system. That's all, right? And I say this from personal experience because I've had anxiety for the good majority of my life. And I realized my nervous system has been dysregulated probably my whole life since the moment I came out the womb. It just wasn't severe enough to the point where it impacted my quality of life on a physical level, where it limited me to do or not to be able to do the things that I actually wanted anymore, even with anxiety. Now we're a little bit more than dysregulated. Now my nervous system's going into a freeze mode, right? Mm-hmm. My emoji clearly agrees with me.
Mine don't do it. I don't know how yours do it.
Why? Yeah, hold on, let me see.
I didn't do.
Whoa, that's more
fireworks.
than a thumbs up. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, but
That's exciting.
yeah, I don't know what happened, but that's my thoughts of it, right? If somebody says I've been anxious my whole life, but now I have CFS, and they try to separate the two, you've had a nervous system with lower capacity than you thought then for the majority of your life, and now it's just gotten deeper because we haven't worked on healthy ways of approaching it by no fault of your own. Obviously, this is in no way trying to shame or make somebody feel guilty, right? If someone is never taught how to approach something in a healthy way, why would it make sense for anybody to try and shame and guilt them for lacking that information? If anything, I give you credit to being on this call here in order to seek out this information to make your life better, you see? So you're doing a good thing here, in my opinion. What do you think, Crista?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I would remind myself so often, and this is for everyone, we do the best with the tools we have at the time, right? I didn't have the awareness. I'd never seen really a healthy coping mechanism. I'd never seen any kind of balanced gray area type of response. I can look back now with hindsight and sort of put the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay, those feelings of anxiety, those came on when I was quite young. And then some of the GI stuff that started to come on in my 20s. And then this, talk about layers, right? There were these layers that were coming on. And then eventually I got to the point where a really tough virus was on that top and I didn't respond very well to that. And that tipped my nervous system into that deeper level of survival mode. But it was only through hindsight and kind of looking at things through the lens of the nervous system that I started to put those pieces together. If you asked me what was going on my first week finding CFS recovery, I would have had very different perspective than I do now, but it's taken that time and looking at my life with that new awareness. And then I want to echo that. I think about this so often, how fortunate and privileged and honored I am to get to be here with a group of people that are working on that awareness and that understanding and are showing up for themselves, showing up for their recovery, looking for change. That's not an easy thing to do. So I admire everyone for being here, for being open to the possibility, right, that we can shift these things. And especially if we've never had those things modeled before. I remember getting on these calls and I thought, compared to everyone in my family, I was like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. I do respond well. And then I had this other shift where I was like, oh, I'm responding a little differently than the folks in my immediate
compared to
family.
who? Yeah.
Yes. But what's my measurement here? Like, okay, I do have some work to do, right? And so it was that perspective of like, okay, but I was open to the growth. And so big shout out to everyone for being here.
And for those of you who are in the program, who are on the calls, who feel bad that maybe you're not as regulated as a coach or maybe as other people, and you feel shame and guilt about, I don't feel like I'm up to par, I'm doing this the right way, or, I approach things in a healthy way. Don't feel bad about it. That's exactly why you're here. It's literally our job to teach you that. It's not something that you feel like you should know going into the program. Don't worry about that, right? We got your back. And nobody ever judge you for it either, because I've been there, I've done that, I've lived it. I understand, right? And so does Crista as well.
Oh.
Okay. What do you think, Crista? You got time for one more?
Yeah. What do you think? You want to do one more?
Let's do one more. I have a check-in call right after this with somebody. I'm going to message them and see if I can meet with them maybe 15 minutes after so I can grab a snack in between, But here, I'll have you kick this one off while I message.
Okay. Let's do it. So it looks like it's Christian is asking, in the morning, I feel always very anxious and tired. Then in the afternoon, I feel a bit better. And later in the afternoon, I feel very emotional. Is my nervous system testing me because I've done some things? It's a great question. So it sounds like mornings are pretty tough. And then the afternoons start to get a little bit better. And then there's some emotions that are coming up in the afternoon or that later afternoon. And I would just think of this as very, very natural as we're going through recovery. Something that helped me to understand is when we have a hypersensitive nervous system, it has difficulty shifting states, right? And it has, and mine had this too, it has difficulty going from a more, what I guess I would call like a downregulated or a less activation energy there. So like when we're trying to sleep, right? And then we're trying to get some mobilization energy. We're trying to get started for the day. When we have a hypersensitive nervous system, it has some difficulty switching gears smoothly. This is my old analogy, but it really stuck with me in recovery. It felt like my nervous system was like a rusty old farm truck that I was trying to do like shift the gears on it. And it had been like sitting out in the rain for like a while. right? And so it was really difficult for me to get up and moving in the mornings. And then actually same thing in the other direction in the evenings. I'd have that difficulty kind of down regulating or shifting into a more restful state, right? My rusty nervous system, versus as we go through recovery, one of the things that starts to happen is we build that nervous system resiliency, and our nervous system starts to be able to shift states more smoothly. I kind of thought of it more like a sports car or something on a coastal highway, just kind of shifting gears around those curves and those turns, and that's what happens through recovery, right? We are still going to have those, like what Junior was talking about earlier. We can still have some triggering things come up, but we're able to shift from that. We don't get stuck in that state. But when our nervous system is sensitive, has difficulty shifting gears. So I had the same pattern. The more challenging mornings, a little bit more energy, a little bit lower symptoms midday. And then I often would have like later in the afternoon, either a dip or a lot of emotions. And this was definitely part of my journey. And I saw those emotions very similar to that same dip that I had in that time frame. And I would recommend using some emotional processing here. And what that looked like for me is letting those emotions come in, letting them kind of be felt. It might be felt in my body. I started sometimes with just a couple breaths. Could I just be with that emotion for just a few moments? I also had a chair out on my balcony that I would go to if those were emotions of sadness, emotions of anger, emotions of grief. And I'd go kind of literally sit with those emotions. I didn't really realize what I was doing at the time, but now I understand that I was showing my nervous system, hey, these emotional symptoms that are coming up, they're safe. They're okay. I can be with them for a little bit. And we want to do that with whatever the capacity we have to hold those things is, right? So I would think of it more like this is an opportunity to show your nervous system that even some of these challenging emotions can be safe, that you can be okay. And the other thing that I would add to this, that next layer, is that we're feeling those feelings, we're feeling those emotions that are coming up. But then we're not getting pulled into the narratives and the stories, even though some of those can be quite compelling. A lot of them are our brain's attempt at, like we talked about earlier, our brains are brilliant, right? So it's our brain's attempt at wanting to explain these emotions, and we can get pulled into that story. But now that's amplifying that emotion. And then we may not have the capacity to carry that emotion for several hours or sometimes several days, right? So that was what was helpful for me, is giving myself that space to feel those emotions, but then not engage with or swat away the thoughts and the stories that were coming up. And it could be that, you've stretched your nervous system a little bit with some activity. And as a result, you're feeling your nervous system giving you a little bit of symptoms. But just like we talked about earlier too, it's that importance of not linking these things too strongly and just kind of recognizing where we're at when those symptoms or emotions, which again are symptoms as well, are coming up, right? And just working on how are we responding? How are we supporting ourselves? But you want to add to that, Junior?
I wouldn't have said it better myself. I don't even think there's anything that I could effectively add that would make that answer any better than it is. That's the thing, right? So really, really, really good. So thank you so much for sharing that, Crista. I appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. We are right on time, folks. I mean, I haven't been on one of these live streams for a long time, but thank you guys for being here. Right. Thank you for giving us the space. Thank you for giving us the platform to be able to share and do what we do. And we're really nothing without you folks, right? And the community. And if you're from the program, you're watching, appreciate you every single day. Seriously, we love you guys. And if you live in the US, like Crista and I, it's Thanksgiving week, right? It's Thanksgiving weekend as well. So we want to just take this time for those of you who are going into the holiday season. We're thankful for you. Okay. Thank you so much for everything you do, for watching all our YouTube videos, for giving us feedback, for writing your comments. That stuff doesn't go unnoticed at all. And Crista, I'm thankful for you as well, to be able to work alongside you, especially for as long as we have, and just hearing your answers and us going back and forth. It shows how much we've grown and how much we've learned since day one of us really starting this stuff together. So, I mean, overall, I just feel a sense of gratefulness. I'm very happy. I'm in a good place in my life. And a lot of it is because of this wonderful community as well, how unbelievably uplifting you are and solution focused this group is to get themselves out to live the life that they feel like they deserve. So thank you so much for being here. And Crista, is there anything you'd like to say before we let these folks go?
Just absolutely echo what you're saying there, Junior. I am so grateful and so honored to get to be here and be part of this. And I'm also very grateful you had the right link so we could get kicked off. So thank you, Junior, for being here. I'm very grateful for you and just being on this journey with you and getting to be here today. And to any of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you have that moment of connection, some peace, some gratitude in there. And if you're not, same for you too. Lots of peace, lots of gratitude, and, ride those waves of recovery. You got this. Recovery is inevitable.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next time. Okay. Excellent.